I'm pleased to rise today to speak to this opposition motion, but I regret and I'm sure nobody will be surprised by this, I regret to inform you so early on that I will not be supporting this opposition motion. This motion that we have before us, Madam Speaker, has nothing to do with Ukraine. This is a motion about pipelines. And I think that it's extremely unfortunate that the Conservative Party of Canada would bring in a motion into this House about pipelines under the guise of trying to be supportive of what's going on in Ukraine. And why is that so glaringly obvious to me, Madam Speaker? Because the first two clauses in this motion, nobody would ever disagree with them. I don't think there's a Canadian out there that doesn't realize that the vast majority of Canadians stand with Ukraine throughout what they're going through right now. There isn't even, anybody who follows politics closely or even remotely follows politics that doesn't realize that every party in this House supports the Ukrainian people and what they're fighting for, and that we condemn Vladimir Putin. So the first two clauses in this motion are moot, Madam Speaker, because we've already passed unanimous consent motions of this support. We've already talked about the various different things that we can be doing in Ukraine to make the situation there better, and that we can properly support Ukraine as they're going through this particular extremely difficult time. So it all comes down to the third clause in this motion, a clause about pipelines. And so I think it would have been much more genuine had the Conservatives just shown up here today and said, we got a motion about pipelines, this is our motion, we want more pipelines, like they do so often in this House, and just called it for what it was. But instead they come in with this motion that has these two additional clauses in it to somehow suggest that this has to do with Ukraine. So this is just their wedge politics that they're doing right now. It's feeding to their base that are so dead set on oil being the only solution. You talk about, you listen to what the Conservatives have said today, and when they talk about energy security, they talk about energy as though oil is the only option for energy. Like, they use the term energy and oil interchangeably because they only see oil as being an option when it comes to energy. And, so I'll talk about this motion in the context of it being a motion about pipelines. And let's just assume for a second that that was genuinely what they wanted, and they came in here to talk about pipelines. It doesn't make any sense, even from a pipeline perspective. The Eastern European countries, and those countries that are supposedly going to be saved by these new pipelines that the Conservatives keep talking about, why is it that Conservatives think that Europe wants to transfer its dependency from one third country to another third country? They don't want to do that. As a matter of fact, the European Commissioner for Energy, Kadri Simpson, said, and I quote, "The Russian invasion made our vulnerability painfully clear. We cannot let any third country destabilize our energy markets or influence our energy choices." So you have the Energy Commissioner for the European Union saying, we don't want to be dependent on any country, any third country, for our energy sources. But then you have the Conservatives coming in here saying, we need to build pipelines so that we can make them dependent on us. The same Commissioner for Energy from the European Union said, we must, quote, boost renewables and energy efficiency as fast as technically possible. So even if they were looking to diversify and get some of this oil, even though he says they're not even interested in oil as a source of energy. They're interested in renewables. This is what they're saying. So even if the Conservatives came from a well-intentioned place on this, and they really thought that these pipelines were really about the security of Europe, those in Europe are telling us that they're not interested in them. They don't want to be dependent on another country, and they're very much interested in looking for a very fast transition to renewables. Not to mention the fact that building these pipelines will be billions upon billions of dollars, and they will take years to complete. Europe has made it clear that they are comfortable with their current reserve situation for this winter, but they have to start looking towards next winter. But they've also made it clear that they're not interested in being dependent on another country, and that they're interested in renewables as a form of energy as quickly as possible. So somehow, most of the Western world is on board with this, and they understand this. The European Energy Commissioner knows this. 4 parties in this House know this. I'd say the vast majority of Canadians know this. But yet, the Conservatives come in here and are completely unaware of it. And so I'm left wondering, well, why? Why are they doing this? Why do they think that they need to put forward this? Do they genuinely think that this is plausible? Remember, European Union said they're not interested. It'll take years to build and a lot of money. So why are they doing this? Is it just to shore up their base? To prove to their base that they're fighting for oil and gas? That's the only thing that I can conclude on in terms of the motivation for bringing forward such a motion today. And Madam Speaker, I guess in conclusion, I'll say I'm not interested. I'm more than willing to tell my Conservative colleagues across the way, all members of this House, and all Canadians that I'm not interested in pipelines. I'm certainly not interested in the government subsidizing pipelines. I don't think that there's a role anymore in this day and age for the government of Canada to be subsidizing pipelines. Now, does that mean that I'm completely naive to the amount of oil we use? No, I'm not. And I'm fully aware that the vast majority of products that are in this room use, if not all, used oil to make them, whether directly or indirectly. But I am aware that the technologies that we need to be investing in, that we need to subsidize, are the technologies that can be making different ways, that can be providing options to make these products differently, to put different products into the products that we have, or the various different things that we're currently making out of oil. So I know that this is a default reaction from the Conservatives all the time. They always say, well, we need oil, we're not going to get off of oil tomorrow. Yeah, I get that, and I agree with that, and I understand that, and I'm not dismissing it at all. But what I'm saying is that my own personal opinion is that oil is not the solution long term. When you talk about building pipelines, you're talking about long term. You're interested in talking about 20, 30, 40 years down the road. And there will always be a dependency on some form of oil or gas. I get that. But hopefully, it won't be the dependency and the degree to the dependency that we have on it right now today. So we need to move away from this, and I surely do not support this motion, and I think it's shameful that the Conservatives are using a crisis on the other side of the world to promote their agenda.